Hi guys, welcome back. Tonight I'm reading 3 creepy r/no-sleep stories, and they're the kind that make you stare at your ceiling after. If you like scary story nights, please like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one, and comment which story was the creepiest, because I want to know if I'm the only one that gets freaked out by these. So get comfy, and maybe don't listen to this alone. And let's start with story number 1. My dad told me to never enter the garage at night. Now I know why. Though strange, I always abided by that rule. It didn't make much sense to me. What could possibly be going on that I wasn't supposed to see? Whatever he did there for hours every night was a mystery to me. Things changed when I started hearing the sounds. Clicking, grinding parts, wet squelches, low groans, all coming from the other side of that garage door. I heard it when I snuck out one night, pressed my ear against the sliding door. It sent a pinprick wave down my spine. I asked my dad the next morning if he had been busy in the garage last night. The mood change in the room was instant and palpable. His cold glare was enough to shut down my question. He was never a violent man, but I knew at that moment he could become one. I snuck outside and listened through the garage door a few more times over the next couple weeks. I heard the same sounds each time. I tried to picture in my head what was going on. I wondered if he was a serial killer. The thought ran my blood cold. I made and acted out a plan to see what was going on. In the daylight, while my parents were preparing dinner, I carefully raised the garage door and lowered it just far enough to look closed while still having a tiny, almost imperceptible gap at the bottom. After my mom went to bed, around 1 a.m., I snuck outside and went to the garage door. I could hear footsteps on the other side. I laid down flat on my belly over the rough driveway, my face squished up to the door. I could just barely see into the room. I saw him walk over to a shelf and grab a black container. He unscrewed the cap. He then raised it above my field of view, which only extended as high as his upper arm. Thick, laborious gulps, on the verge of gagging. He was drinking something. I saw long, yellow, viscous strips form and fall down the front of his shirt and onto the floor, making a small pool. Motor oil. He was chugging motor oil. It made me queasy just hearing it. My stomach formed a knot. It felt hard and weighty as I laid there on the cold cement. I couldn't stand it. I got up and left. I didn't sleep that night. My stomach still hurt the next morning, the knot refusing to leave. It was hard to look at my dad after that. He creeped me out. After seeing that, he just looked different. I noticed the rigid, slow way he carried himself and spoke. It was just odd. The next night I was back. I'd raised the door a little higher, just enough to see his whole body. I prayed that he wouldn't notice. He entered, walked straight to the toolbox, grabbed the power drill, took off his shirt, turned away from me. I saw him raise the drill to his chest. I hoped the pavement would conceal my intense heartbeat. The drill made progress on something solid but fleshy. It sounded wet. After a few seconds, I heard and saw a bloody screw ping as it hit the floor. Then another. Then I heard those jaw-clenching popping sound like bones being snapped out of place. He turned back to the toolbox, giving me a profile view. I could see his chest swung open like a cabinet door. A rectangle of hairy skin faced me. The light diffusing through revealed the workings of a rib cage and something else, thin and dark under the skin like wires. My wide, unblinking eyes witnessed as he priced around and tooled with whatever was behind the cabinet door of the flesh. I'd occasionally hear an odd tear or a snap, followed by a quick, painful groans and heavy breathing. Sometimes blood would drip down. Other times more yellow fluid would. He eventually closed it up and left. The knot in my stomach felt bigger, harder. It hurt. I was nauseous. I fought back the urge to vomit right there. I talked to my mom the next day while we walked to the grocery store together. Has Dad seemed weird lately? Weird? What do you mean? She turned to me, her brow furrowed. Like, is he okay? Medically? Physically? My nervous eyes diverted contact. She scoffed. Your father is a strong man. You know that. Where's this coming from? I just wonder sometimes about what he does in the garage all the time, I said, my voice quieting to a whisper. Her voice took on a brighter note. Honey, he's more than okay. He's growing, big and strong, just like I did. Just like you are now. She pressed her finger on my nose and made a sickly sweet smile. My stomach spasmed, and I knew if I pressed more, I'd be left even more confused. Regardless, her last statement left me bewildered. Growing into what? I tooled around some ideas and worries in my head as I stared at the ceiling each night, unable to sleep anymore. My stomach pains had progressed to the point of regular Tums consumption, but it remained. I pleaded with myself, really, that this must all be a misunderstanding and I needed to squash my doubts. Eventually, I decided on action. A few nights after the conversation with my mom, I entered the garage just prior to midnight, before my dad showed up. I found a pile of boxes with the blue tarp strewn over and hid my body within it. It was at just this right angle to allow myself a full view of my dad from front on, assuming he were to face the same direction as the last time. I waited for 2 hours with a vain, throbbing anxiety. When I heard the door swing open, I nearly had a heart attack. He went about the same routine procedure. Toolbox, power drill, shirt off. He raised the drill, the screwdriver bit locking in place over a hard groove under the skin. He pulled the trigger. The thin flesh tore instantly, wrapping around the bit and flailing loosely. Beneath lay a small, bloody screw. It quickly spun out of his chest and fell to the floor. I could see his grimace. He repeated the same procedure, lower on his chest with a second screw. When the other screw fell, he dug his nails under a ridge on the right of his ribs, between the screw holes. He pulled hard. I clenched my jaw and my teeth, and they felt as though they could shatter at any moment. Rubbery flesh stretched and snapped. Rib bones popped and creaked. The door to his chest was opening. Stringy blood and oil and mucus dripped down, and I was hit with a wave of smell that reeked of gasoline, burnt hair, and cleaning chemicals. Then I saw inside. His chest was full of these interlacing, shiny, metallic pistons, gears, belts, black tubes, all coated in this brownish-reddish slime. A tangle of coppery wires snaked around a blackened, shivering lung. It expanded with each shuddering breath. There were no other human organs discernible amongst the mess at all. I gagged involuntarily. My hand moved to cover my mouth, my knuckles a blistering white. My heart worked overtime. He looked down, straight at the opening at the bottom of the tarp, straight at me. His hand grabbed the fleshy door and slammed it shut, clicking it into place, flimsy skin still hanging around the edges. He squatted down and lifted the tarp. "Son," he whispered. His dark eyes trained on me intensely. I couldn't come up with an excuse. I'd gone too far. "I told you not to come in here, didn't I?" He shook his head angrily. "You just had to know, didn't you? You're no different than your mother." I tried to scoot backwards, but I ran into a box. "Does this scare you?" "It should." He folded his arm over his mangled chest. "You are my son. You are me." What? What? What do you mean?" I felt the knot in my stomach with my hand, feeling its weight and hardness. "You get it now, huh?" His lip curled into a smile. "Don't tell anyone about this. Family secret," he said, raising his dripping wet finger to his mouth, shushing me. I got up on unstable legs and ran out the room. After I went into my room and locked the door, I had to know. I grabbed my pocket knife. My quivering hands guided the blade over the knot. I cut into myself, a hot pain radiating across my stomach. An inch-long incision was all I needed. The skin peeled back, forming a football-shaped opening. I saw a black tube, hard, plastic, covered in the same bloody mucus. It was deeply rigid and bent. I poked it, feeling its immovable, warm mass. At that moment, I almost felt oddly comforted by it. I'm sending this here because I can't keep this secret. I'm terrified, but I'm excited too. I want to share this with people. It must be what my mom said. I'm growing, just like my dad. I'll be big and strong soon. That one was pretty creepy. Imagine walking into your garage and seeing your dad being a literal Terminator underneath his skin. Yeah, that should give anyone a nice nightmare tonight. I think my family is trying to eat me. I've been big since I can remember. My weight always bothered the hell out of me, but no one else really seemed to care. Husky, not chunky, my mom would say. I think the first really odd thing that stuck with me started with my older brother Sid. He's the gym rat, damn near bulging out of his clothes. Halfway through my freshman year in high school, I asked him to start taking me to the gym with him. Being the designated fat guy in class and gym and the friend group was making me depressed. I was sick of it. "Are you sure? You're not supposed to be working out when you're still growing. It's supposed to be bad for the growth plates. You don't really need it anyway." What was I supposed to say? He's my older brother. But I looked that up later and it's bullshit. Wives' tale, or whatever. Then 2 years later, I'd spent a paycheck for my first job on a set of dumbbells that I could use in the basement by myself. I was too self-conscious to go to the gym, so I'd spend an extra hour in the morning or night doing reps. One day, Sid walked in and spent a few minutes correcting my form. That was nice, learning from my big brother, who's usually too old or too busy to be spending time with me. "Good," he nodded at my posture. Then he smiled and gave me a wink before ascending the basement stairs. But when I glanced at him before he left, he was looking over his shoulder at me with this look. It was a complete switch up, like disapproval or concern. I'm not sure, but I remember his face, and it wasn't pleasant. The next day I couldn't find my dumbbells. I asked my mom if she had cleaned and moved them, but she said she hadn't. I asked Sid, and he denied it too. "Don't need your little dumbbells, bro. That's just my warm-up." That was the last time I worked out. I never noticed concerning behavior from my parents until recently. Never thought about it too much. They're all so much more subtle. When we were younger, and Sid started working out, he'd demand salad at dinner, so my mom soon added a modest bowl of greens to the table every night. Always happened that by that time the salad bowl was in my hands, there'd only be scraps of spinach, maybe a single cherry tomato left if I was lucky. Mom always smiled at me and said there'd be more next time. There never was. Don't get me wrong, I hated salad, but my big brother was eating it, so I'd be damned if I wasn't gonna have at least a nibble on a leaf or two. One time, I even snatched the bowl early to try and get a serving, but my dad, smooth as butter, scooped it from my hands and chuckled, like he had just caught a falling child. Easy there, buddy. Gotta let the people who need it go first. I looked around and down at my protruding gut. Seemed to me like I was the only one who needed it. In college, my insurance finally agreed to cover the staggering cost of an Ozempic prescription. Finally, I could lose the weight that had been holding me back from living a fulfilling life. Not commenting on obesity. If you're happy the way you are, that's great. But I wasn't, and it was getting to my mental. Picked up my prescription the same day. I'm afraid of needles, but I jabbed the pointy end of the pen into me with no hesitation. Life was beginning to look good. And then my mom found out. She sat me down at the kitchen table and expressed her concerns. But every rebuttal I landed, every fallacy I pointed out, was denied. There's nothing wrong with you. You're perfect the way you are. Honey, you wouldn't need to be using drugs if you actually tried to lose weight. I'm scared. I don't like seeing my son poking himself with a needle. We can help you as a family. The conversation ended with tears, but I didn't budge. We barely talked for the next few days. She didn't even look at me when I was in the same room as her. Then one day she wakes me up with breakfast in bed, acting all sweet and nice, asking if I wanted to go out to eat later today. A couple hours later, and I get a call from my insurance company. My claim had been reviewed, and after further consideration, they would, unfortunately, be ceasing further coverage. I'd only been on Ozempic for a month. Right after I hung up, my mom knocked on my door and poked her head in. Everything all right, dear? She ended up taking me to dinner that night to make me feel better. Golden Corral. I tried to focus on the food, but I couldn't help watching her while she wasn't looking. Am I crazy so far? I'll go on. Last week someone broke into our house. I'm home for the summer with my whole family. Sid works from the house and hasn't moved out yet. We live in a nice area and a very nice neighborhood. I don't know why I woke up. Wasn't uncommon though because of sleep complications from my weight. When I turned over in bed, there were two figures dressed in all black standing in my doorway. They had ski masks on and moved quickly. I thought I was dreaming until I felt a pinch where one of them had stuck a needle into my arm. I faded to a muffled voice saying, "Got him." My mom and dad said they'd taken their sleeping pills that night and never heard anything. Sid was out of the house crashing at his girlfriend's place. I woke to a distant pain that felt like a Charlie horse blooming in my foot, but I barely noticed. I was screaming, thrashing, trying to find where the masked figures had gone. Maybe it was a nightmare, I hoped, until I felt something warm down by my feet and I looked, trying to remember if I had put on mismatched socks before I went to bed. One of them was white, the other was completely soaked in red and drenched with blood. The pain suddenly crashed into me like a wrecking ball. My sock was shredded at the top, so I could see the oozing, gory mess inside. My last thought before passing out again was, my toes. They took my toes. The police said it looked like a robbery. There were some things stolen from every room. I asked them from my hospital bed why they would maim me like that. "You were the only one who woke up. Just bad timing, kid. Sorry," the detective said. Sometimes these sick bastards like taking a trophy with them. He shook my father's hand and said he'll be doing everything he can to find the masked figures. My father thanked him and said he'd meet him at the bar later. It's a small town. Everyone knows everyone, which shouldn't mean anything, but I don't know. I feel like I'm losing my mind. I was released from the hospital after a day with strict orders to stay in my bed and rest. When my family drove me home, they had a big feast prepared. "We're so happy you're all right," my mom said, serving everyone's plate. "And with you gone at college, it's about time we share a family meal. We love having you for dinner." We loaded our plates up, and then Mom brought out the final dish, smoked meatballs. Dad gushed about how he'd been looking out everywhere for the ingredients to this recipe, and he had to pay a fortune for it. "What is it?" I asked. There were only 5 of them on the small dish, and I eyed their strange texture. Dad paused before smiling. "A type of sheep. Won't find anything like this for miles around. We got lucky." He dropped a meatball on each one of our plates and held one up in a toast. "Bon appetit," he said cheerfully. I watched each of them sink their teeth into the meat, juice dribbling down their chin. Sid groaned in delight. "This is great stuff, Dad. Are you gonna eat yours?" My brother pointed to my plate. I wasn't hungry anymore. I shook my head and said I needed to lay down because my foot hurt. Sid shrugged and leaned across the table to snatch the meatball off my plate. I made my way out of the kitchen, slowly on crutches. Hobbling up the stairs, I heard hushed voices from below. I couldn't really make it out, but I swear the only word I heard for certain, and I'm 100% positive I heard it right: suspicious. Am I still crazy? Help me out here. I have to spend the next couple weeks in bed, and I feel really paranoid all the time. Is there something I should do in the way of precaution? Talk about a family dinner. I think they were trying to get a sick kick out of him literally eating his own toes, while they were nibbling on his toes as well. I don't know. Hopefully this story isn't real, but if it is, I have no words. I survived one night in the Appalachians. It didn't end there. I wasn't supposed to be out there by myself. That's the part I've had to say out loud to people afterward, because otherwise people start filling in blanks for you. They turn it into some brave, wholesome, kid finds himself in nature thing, or they decide I was asking for it, or they laugh and call it a Blair Witch moment like that's helpful. I'm 17. I had a driver's license, a job at a grocery store where I spent half my shift stacking canned beans and pretending to not hear grown men argue over scratch-off tickets. And I'd been hiking these mountains with my uncle since I was in middle school. And I still wasn't supposed to be out there by myself. My mom was on a 12-hour shift at the hospital. My stepdad was doing one of his "I'm gonna be in the garage" moods, which meant he'd have a podcast blasting and he'd be offended if anyone spoke to him. My Uncle Wayne was out of state for work. The one person who would have told me, "No, don't be an idiot," wasn't around. So I did what I've been doing all summer. Stacked my excuses in neat little piles and tried to make them look like facts. I told myself it wasn't the back country. It was a trail I'd done before. I told myself I'd be in and set up before dark. I told myself bear spray was practically a cheat code. I told myself my folding knife made me a person who could handle things. I even wrote a note on the kitchen counter in Sharpie on the back of a pizza coupon like a kid sneaking out in a movie. Going camping, back tomorrow. Love you. Like love you was a force field. The trailhead parking lot was half full. Dusty SUVs, a couple Subarus with stickers all over the back windows, and one minivan with a family unloading like they were moving in. I parked in the far corner like my car was embarrassing, which it was. There was a guy tightening his bootlaces on the tailgate of a truck. He nodded at me. I nodded back. That tiny thing made me feel safer than it should have. One bar of service blinked at the top of my phone like it was doing me a favor. I put it on airplane mode anyway. Battery is something I could control. Sort of. My pack was heavier than I had pretended it would be. Cheap dome tent, old sleeping bag, stove, headlamp, and backup flashlight, jerky and ramen, and the silver emergency blanket Wayne insisted on. I had a squeaky water filter and a roll of duct tape. That was it. I locked my car twice. Habit, anxiety, something. The first mile was easy. Wide trail, packed down from use. Little root steps in places. Flat stones like a natural sidewalk. I passed a couple of trekking poles and matching their sun hats. I passed a family with 2 kids arguing about trail mix. Normal sounds. Leaves shivering in a light breeze. A woodpecker somewhere hammering like someone knocking on a hollow door. After a while, the trail split. The main loop kept going, and the spur I wanted cut off and started climbing harder. The sign was sun-faded and a little crooked. Under it, nailed to the post, was a small rusted tag that said, Trail Maintenance Crew, 1987. Wayne had pointed it out the first time and said, That tag's older than you, bud, like it was a joke. I stepped onto the spur, and the world changed in a way I can't explain without sounding dramatic. It wasn't like the light turned off or the temperature dropped 10 degrees. It was smaller, like when you walk into a room where people were talking about you and they stop. The trail got narrower. Ferns crowded the edges and brushed my shins. I could still hear distant voices behind me for a bit. Then those faded too, and the mountains took over. A little past the split, there's a boulder that sits right on the left side of the trail, like someone rolled it there on purpose. It's the size of a small car, and it has a white quartz seam running through it like a scar. Wayne used it as a marker. Once you pass the quartz rock, it's just you and the ridge. I passed quartz rock, and that was exactly what it felt like. The climb wasn't horrible, but it was steady. The kind that makes you aware of your breathing and the sweat cooling on your back. Halfway up, I saw the first thing that made my stomach pinch. A deer trail crossed my path. Plants bent in a narrow line. Dirt darker where hooves have churned it up. Except it wasn't just deer. There were prints that didn't make sense. Human-ish smears. Like someone had pressed the side of a shoe into the dirt and dragged. 2 of them, too close together. I crouched down, stared, stepped next to them. Not mine. I told myself it was old, softened by rain. Maybe someone slipped. Enough of a story that my brain latched onto it. Still, I stood up slower than I needed to and listened harder than I'd been listening. Not for bears. Not for snakes, for footsteps. Nothing obvious, just the normal small noises that are supposed to be comforting. That day they felt like camouflage. By mid-afternoon, I started feeling watched. Not in a poetic way, in a physical way, like the space behind me had weight. I tried to make it funny for myself. Okay, Evan, congrats. You've invented anxiety. I even said it out loud. Hearing my own voice helped until it didn't. On a switchback, I heard a low, wet sound, like someone clearing their throat with their mouth closed. It came from downhill to my right, close enough that I froze. I stood there with my hand half raised to push a branch away and listened so hard that my ears hurt. Nothing. No follow-up movement. No animal scampering. Just absence. I kept going because stopping felt worse. A while later, the trail cut through a stand of hemlocks. Everything got darker under them, light turning greenish and flat. My headlamp bounced against my chest with each step. But that watched feeling got worse, and I saw something that didn't fit. At shoulder height on a tree trunk, maybe 20 feet off the trail, the bark had been scraped away in a wide patch. Fresh, pale wood exposed, sap glistened. Not bear marks, not vertical gouges, a sideways smear like something leaned into it and rubbed. Probably nothing, I muttered. I didn't believe myself, not fully. Wayne's campsite was near a stream where the spur trail drops off a little and you can hear the water before you see it. There's an old blaze mark on a tree, too. 2 faded rectangles of yellow paint, one over the other. Wayne had said, "If you see the double yellow, you're almost there." When I saw the double yellow, relief hit me like a wave. The campsite was there, sort of. A patch of ground flatter than the rest. A few stones arranged like someone had started a fire ring at some point. The stream was a thin, clear ribbon running over rocks, making that steady hush sound that should have been calming. I dropped my pack and did the perimeter check like Wayne taught me to. Look for dead branches overhead, scat, signs someone else is already there. No obvious animal signs, no footprints. But on the far edge of the clearing, the ferns were bent in a line, like something moved through there recently, a narrow line into the trees. I stared at it long enough to feel stupid, then set up my tent fast anyway. Routine. Routine makes you feel like you're in control. I filtered water. The filtered water squeaked when I tightened it. Same as always. I boiled ramen. I ate out of the pot. I hung my food bag the best I could. Not perfect, but high enough that it made me feel better. The rope burned my hands. Dusk hit and the woods turned into a different place. Not haunted, just less readable. I brushed my teeth down by the stream. Mint paste, gritty water, spit into the rocks. When I straightened up, I saw something on the opposite bank. A pile of stones. Not a neat cairn. More like someone dumped pale rocks in a clump. They weren't there earlier, I would have noticed. My headlamp caught them and made them look too bright. I stepped closer, and on the top stone there was a smear. Dark, wet-looking, brown-black. I didn't touch it. I swept my light along the tree line, across from the pile, and saw nothing, but the back of my neck went tight anyway. I went back to my tent quick, not running, but quick. Inside, I zipped the mesh door and sat on my sleeping bag with my shoes still on, headlamp on my forehead, bear spray by my thigh like a comfort object. I listened. Stream, bugs, a faint owl call. Then, deeper in the trees, I heard that throat-clearing sound again. Low, wet, close. I told myself deer make weird sounds. Foxes scream like people. Nature is creepy. This was my brain getting dramatic because I was alone. Except it didn't sound like an animal. It sounded like a person pretending to be one. I checked my phone. 9:03 p.m. One bar of service blinked. I tried to text my mom anyway. "Hey, camp set up. All good." It didn't send. The little spinning icon just sat there. I turned the phone off, then back on, because seeing the screen made me feel less alone. I turned my headlamp off because I didn't want my tent glowing like a lantern. In the dark, the tent got smaller. The mesh was a black void, but the world outside existed only as a sound. Then something snapped a branch near the edge of a clearing. Not a twig, a branch. Sharp crack. I froze so hard that my shoulders hurt. Something brushed the side of the tent. Not a shove, a drag, like fingers testing the material. The nylon whispered. The wall dimpled inward an inch, then released. I raised the bear spray. My thumb found the safety. Right outside, something exhaled. Not a normal animal breath. A long, controlled breath, like someone sighing through their nose. Warm air hit the tent wall. I felt it through the fabric. I whispered, "Go away." Silence. Then movement retreating. No heavy footsteps. More like a whispering shuffle through leaves, towards the stream. A small clink followed, then another. Rock on rock, deliberate, with pauses. Clink, clink, pause, clink. The stream changed tone like something stepped into it carefully, not splashing, controlled. Then I heard my food line shift overhead, a faint creak, like weight testing it. The rope squealed, and the carabiners ticked. A gentle tug, another, then the line went slack. A smaller snap up above, followed by a heavy thump in the leaves. My food bag hit the ground, plastic crinkled, jerky package shifted, something metallic rolled. Then that wet throat sound again, closer to satisfied now. It rooted through my stuff slowly like it owned it, careful, patient, not frantic like a bear, not noisy like a raccoon. Then it stopped. My phone buzzed. The screen lit up. Unknown number. I didn't answer. I didn't decline. I watched it ring until it stopped. Outside, somewhere in the trees, my ringtone sounded, except it wasn't my phone. It was a thin, wrong imitation, like someone humming it through their teeth. Off key. But the humming drifted and faded like it was moving. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Then, right outside the tent, something said my name. Evan. Quiet, like someone calling from across a room. My throat locked. Evan, it said closer. Then, hey bud. Wayne's phrase. It sounded like Wayne in a voicemail, slightly muffled, like the voice was being pushed through something. And then it laughed. It tried to laugh like Wayne, but it came out too low and too wet, like a cough, and a laugh got tangled. Footsteps started, actual footsteps, heavy, bipedal, slow. They crossed the clearing with pauses between steps, like it was listening between movements. It stopped right outside my tent. A sour, damp smell seeped through the fabric, a wet dog and old mushrooms and leaf rot. The tent wall dimpled inward again, higher this time, like something pressed its palm against it. Evan, it said, inches from my face through nylon. It exhaled, slow and warm. Then, in my mom's voice, baby? That hit something soft in my brain I didn't want touched. I made a sound, not a word, a small involuntary whimper. The tent wall pressed in again. Baby, it said, open up. The words were right. The rhythm wasn't. My mom didn't talk like that. Then it started scraping along the zipper line, slow, like it was finding the weak point. The zipper teeth clicked under pressure. It paused. Tap, tap, tap. Knuckles on nylon. Evan, it said, and the voice changed. Older, rougher, gravel in a throat. Come out. I whispered, leave me alone. The tapping stopped. For 1 second I thought maybe that mattered. Then the tent wall caved in. Not a clear tear, a full body shove, pole snapped, fabric collapsed over me. I screamed, ugly and loud. I fired the bear spray blindly into the collapsing nylon, and the cloud blew back into my face. My eyes burned, my throat seized. I coughed so hard I gagged. Outside, something recoiled with a hissy choke, like air forced through something wet and narrow. I clawed my way out, half blinded, tears pouring down my cheeks. Cold air hit my face. The clearing was a smear of darkness. My headlamp was inside the collapsed tent. My flashlight was in my pack. Something landed behind me, heavy. Leaves exploded under the weight. I scrambled backward, hit a rock, fell hard onto my ass. Pain shot up my spine. A tall shape shifted between me and the trees, too tall for a person. Not a bear on hind legs either. Wrong proportions. Wet glints caught starlight, eyes like wet glass. It made that throat sound again, angry now. My hands searched for the bear spray. Gone. My brain screamed, run. I bolted towards the trail. I didn't grab my pack. My keys were in my pack, back at the site, but the idea of a car felt like a story from someone else's life. All I had was direction. I ran uphill because uphill meant ridge, and ridge meant the main trail, and the main trail meant other people. Behind me, it moved, and with that whispering shuffle, fast now, controlled. From somewhere ahead, I heard my own voice. Evan. My name in a pitch, with my stupid nasal thing that I hate recordings. It came from up the trail. I skidded to a stop, lungs seizing. In the darkness ahead, a silhouette stood in the path, shaped like a person, like a teen, like me. It lifted an arm slowly. Evan, it said again, in my voice, and it sounded like it was smiling. My brain snapped into one clean thought. It's hurting you. Using sound to make you stop, to make you turn, to make you doubt. Behind me, leaves whispered, something close distance. So I crashed off the trail into the trees. Branches whipped my face, ferns grabbed my legs, I didn't care. The ground dropped. I half fell, half slid down a steep slope, catching myself on saplings and roots. My palms scraped, my knee slammed into something hard and pain flared white. I kept going until I hit flatter ground and the sound of water found me. The stream again, and I recognized the spot by something stupid. A dead log with orange survey tape caught on it, flapping. I noticed it earlier and thought, random. Seeing it made my stomach drop. I hadn't just run, I'd been angled. I splashed water on my face anyway, trying to wash pepper spray off, and drank without filtering because my brain didn't care anymore. Behind me, tap, tap, tap. Not on nylon, on wood. I turned and saw another scraped patch on a tree. Fresh pale sapwood exposed, shallow gouges in it, not words, just shapes that wanted to be something. A rough outline of a person, 2 long arms, 2 circles for eyes, a line for a mouth. It looked dumb. It made me sick. Across the stream, something stepped into the water carefully. The sound changed around it. That sour smell drifted towards me again. From upstream, in that gravel voice, it said my name, like it liked the taste. Evan. I ran again, sideways through the woods, away from the stream, away from anything that felt like a route it could predict. I ran until my lungs felt like paper. I tripped and went down hard, face first into the leaves. Pain shot through my knee. The breath left me in a sound that was almost a sob. I lay there gasping and listened. No footsteps, no throat sound, just the steady, indifferent noise of the mountains. For the first time all night, the quiet felt like it might be hiding me instead of watching me. I crawled under a fallen log. An old trunk rotted into a low tunnel that stank like fungus. I wedged myself in, shoulders scraping bark. I pulled the emergency blanket from my pocket and crumpled it, dull to keep from shining. It crackled too loud anyway. I hated that sound. Time passed in ugly chunks. My headlamp was gone, my tent was gone, my food was gone, my keys were gone. Everything I'd packed to make myself feel capable was sitting back in that clearing like an offering. And my phone, at some point during the slope in the fall, was gone too. Then the wrong humming started again. My ringtone, off-key like someone copying it from memory. It wasn't coming from a speaker, it was coming from the woods itself. I held my breath and counted in my head because counting is something you can do when nothing else makes sense. 1, 2, 3. The humming stopped. Silence. A hand pressed into the leaves outside the log tunnel. Pale, molted skin stretched too tight, fingers too long, joints bending slightly wrong, nails dark and thick, not claws, just overgrown human nails turned hard. It pressed down slow, leaves crunched. My whole body locked, my heart slammed so loud I was sure I could hear it. The hand lifted, and something lowered itself to look in. A face hovered at the edge of the tunnel. Not human, not animal. Nose like bump, mouth like slit, skin wet in places like it never fully dried. The eyes were the worst. They looked upset. They looked used, like glass doll eyes set wrong, shiny, fixed, no blinking. It leaned closer and pulled air through its mouth slit like it was tasting. My mouth widened slightly. Inside weren't human teeth, broken chunks set in dark gums. It reached one long finger toward me. The emergency blanket crackled as my body trembled. Then the thing's head snapped slightly to the side like it heard something else. Far away, a human voice shouted, "Hello?" Real voice, breath, strain. "Hello? Anybody out there?" My throat tightened so hard it hurt. I wanted to answer. I didn't. The creature froze, calculating. Then it backed away from the tunnel, silent, the hand lifting out of the leaves, like it was never there. The distant voice called again, then moved, then faded. In the silence after, I heard that wet laugh again. Low, close, between me and where the shouting had been, like it had followed the sound, like it knew how to use it. I pressed my face into dirt until it filled my nose. I don't remember falling asleep. I must have, because the next thing I remember is pale light filtering through leaves and the sounds of birds. Normal birds. For a few seconds I forgot where I was. Then I moved and my knee screamed and my hand stung and my mouth tasted like dirt and fear. Reality snapped back in. I crawled out from under the log, blinking at daylight like it was too bright. The woods looked harmless in the morning. That made me angry, like the mountains were pretending. I stood up slow and limped. I didn't see it. I didn't hear it. But the watch feeling didn't fully go away. It lingered under my skin like a splinter. I moved uphill because uphill usually meant ridge and ridge meant trail. After a while I found it. The packed dirt, the way the path felt like a decision instead of randomness. Relief hit so hard my eyes watered. I limped fast, almost jogged. Quartz rock showed up again, the boulder with the white seam, and seeing it twisted my stomach because it meant I really had been looped. Not lost, moved. When I hit the main loop, I saw other hikers, a guy with a dog on a red leash. The dog stopped dead when it saw me, hackles up, low warning wolf in its throat. The guy yanked the leash and stared at me like he couldn't decide what I was. A couple running in shorts slowed. "Are you okay?" the woman asked. 3 college kids came around the bend, one with a Bluetooth speaker clipped to his pack, music tinny and upbeat. One saw my hands and went, "Dude, you're bleeding." The woman snapped, "Turn that off," and the kid fumbled, killing the music mid-chorus. The quiet afterward made my breathing feel loud. "I got lost," I said, My voice came out wrecked. The dog kept staring past me into the trees, nose twitching, whining like it didn't like the smell on me. Bear? The leash guy asked, half joking, but not really. No, I said too fast. No bear. You're alone? The woman asked. I nodded. Sit, she said, and it wasn't a question. I sat on a rock because my legs were shaking. Her partner handed me water. I drank like I had never had water before. You got a phone? The leash guy asked. I lost it. My voice cracked. Her partner pulled his phone out, stepped higher onto the trail, and tried park services. He got through on the second try. When the ranger arrived, he asked me questions like adults do when they're trying to keep things from turning into chaos. Where did you camp? How long were you out? Did you see a bear? Did you hear anything unusual? I told him I got turned around. I told him my tent collapsed. I told him I panicked and ran. All true, technically. My mom arrived like she'd driven straight through her own fear. She hugged me so hard my ribs hurt, then shoved me back and scanned me like she was looking for missing pieces. The ranger asked if we wanted them to retrieve my gear. My mom said yes immediately. My mouth said no. Everyone looked at me. I don't want it, I said too sharp. Just leave it. The ranger blinked. That's expensive stuff, bud. Bud. Wayne's word. My skin prickled. I don't care, I said. Leave it. My mom's face softened in a way that scared me more than her anger. The ranger hesitated, then nodded like he'd dealt with trauma before. Okay, he said. They took my statement. They handed my mom a hiking safety pamphlet, like that was the lesson. My mom drove me home, with one hand clenched white on the steering wheel. I showered until my skin went red, watching muddy water run down the drain, scrubbing like I could erase a smell. That night I didn't sleep. It wasn't just fear. My body refused. Every noise in the house felt too sharp. At 2 a.m. I heard my phone buzz from where it should have been, my nightstand. A short buzz like a notification, then a longer one like an incoming call. My whole body jerked. My heart went straight into my throat. I reached, fingers searching the tabletop. Nothing. My nightstand was empty except for a coaster and a paperback that I'd been pretending to read. No phone, because I'd lost it in the woods. The buzzing happened again anyway, right on the wood, close enough that I felt it in my bones. Then, out of that empty space, a thin, wrong humming started. My ringtone, off by half notes like someone copying it from memory. I yanked my hand back like I'd touched something hot. My stepdad yelled from the garage, "What the hell are you doing?" I didn't answer. My mom came in and flipped the light on. She saw my face and didn't argue. "What?" she said, already scared. "I heard it," I whispered. "Heard what?" "My phone." She looked at the empty tabletop, then at me. I could tell she wanted to say I was dreaming. I could also tell she didn't fully believe that. She asked what happened out there, really happened. I tried to tell her, but all I could picture was that hand in the leaves and the voice using her word for me like it owned it. So I said the only thing I could say without sounding insane. I think something followed me. My mom stared at me for a long second, then put her arm around my shoulders like she was anchoring me. We sat there listening to normal house sounds, fridge hum, distant traffic, my stepdad's podcast muffled through the wall. And in the spaces between those sounds, I kept waiting for tapping, for that wet throat clear, for my own voice saying my name from somewhere it shouldn't be. I didn't hear it again that night. The next morning, the ranger called my mom. His voice was careful. He said they'd gone through the clearing where I'd camped. He said they found my collapsed tent. He said they found my gear. He said my food bag was ripped open and spread out like someone had sorted it, jerky in a neat line, ramen packets stacked like a kid playing store, my lighter placed on a rock like it was being displayed. He said there were stones arranged near the stream too, like someone had been busy with their hands. Then he said, "We didn't find your phone." My mom asked if someone had taken it. The ranger paused. "Ma'am, there were marks on the trees around the site, like rubbing, scraping. We see bear signs sometimes, but this wasn't typical. There were impressions in the soft ground too. Hard to say what from. We'll keep an eye on that area." My mom's fingers tightened around mine so hard it hurt. I didn't hear the rest. Not really, because all I could think was, it didn't need my phone. It never needed my phone. It just liked the sound it could make with it. And now it didn't even need the phone to do that. And that's where we'll end tonight. If you're watching this one alone, maybe don't look behind you. If you've got a good scary story of your own, leave it in the comments. I might read it in the next one. Until then, sleep well. Or at least try to.